Okay. The minutes of the August 31st meeting, does anybody have any corrections or changes?
Nope.
The only thing I'd like to add is that it was from Joyce Kearns and Sam Charity, since Joyce Kearns did most of the legwork. But other than that, I think it stands as presented. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now we get to the survey results, which I think are very encouraging. I mean, they're pretty clear in what the taxpayers and citizens of Kent have presented to us. I went through and, the most important part, I think it's helpful to know how familiar people are with Swift House, and that we need to do a little bit better job of letting them know what's going on and that we've already made a lot of improvements. Thanks to the grant from Miss Emily and other town funds. And it would appear that the consensus is quite clear that people would really like us to continue to, or the town to continue to own and maintain Swift House for civic use. Are you guys all on board with that? I mean, do you have any different opinions? If you add the question number 8, thinking about possible future use of Swift House, please rank the following. A total of 74.79% concurred and either strongly supported or supported the use by for civic use. 53.45% supported or strongly supported keeping it for municipal use. And only 24.37% were in favor of selling the property. So we presented all the options, and that's the feedback that we got. Does anybody have any comments about that or any discussion? A lot of silence. It seems pretty clear that is the consensus. And I think I'm trying to remember exactly how many responses there were. I think there were over 400 people participated in the survey.
405.
405, okay. Okay, so there were also a lot of interesting comments. Did you read through them?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Any in particular that you think we need to pay specific attention to, or just the most, the collective sense of the survey?
Well, I think the comments kind of reflected the percentages that people seem to want the town to keep it. I think there was several people who wondered about the amount of money to be spent and whether the town would do it or not.
Yeah, that was one of the takeaways that I felt too. Quite a few people wanted more information, and that's where I think we really need to work very hard on assembling our financial information and really coalescing on some perspective of work that would have to be done soon to reopen the building, and work that could be phased perhaps over time. But and I think that has to be real information. As I said to you in my email with the agenda, or preceding the agenda, we have some ballpark figures of things. I mean, for example, Glenn, I don't know who gave you the information about the rat slab and the insulation so that the rear room would actually be usable year round and could be adequately heated and maintain that. But the range is so big that it isn't a number that's easy to pin down. I think it was something like 2 to 7. And it was in the minutes of the last meeting. Yeah, $5,000 to $12,000. Have you gotten written estimates from anybody on those two pieces of that assignment?
No, well, that information that I gave the last meeting that I just got off of, I got off the internet looking at various companies to see
Yeah.
what they do. I did speak with Mike Gobble. I did talk to Insulation, about the Good Life Energy Savers. I did talk to Sheldon Masonry and Concrete, but all three of them said that they couldn't give me anything definitive unless they got into the building.
But this is all outside. All you have to do is open those doors on the south end and look under the room.
Yep.
So they could, they could look at that and give you information because that's the space we're talking about.
Well, they told me they wanted to get in and take a look, and I told them that I don't have a key, and I work during the day, and I just didn't have time to do any of that. But did any of you take a look at what Joyce sent us 2 hours ago?
Yeah, but I'd like to leave that until later because I think it's not on the agenda for one thing, and I'd like to
We
move
can-
through the agenda if we can.
Can we add it to the agenda?
Joyce, are we allowed to do that?
No, this is a special meeting, so technically
right.
no.
Okay, so I won't refer to that document, but
Okay.
I won't refer to it.
Okay, all right. The next item on the agenda is informal outreach. I wanted to let you know that Chris Garrity took it upon himself as a person who's actively involved in, as a private citizen and someone who was the liaison for this preceding Swift House Task Force. And someone who's, concerned about civic engagement in the town of Kent. And he put together a meeting, approached a number of the civic organizations in town, asked them if they'd be interested in coming together to talk a little bit about the potential for Swift House and whether they would be interested in participating in a sort of collaborative way. He invited me to come, which I did as a representative of the Kent Town Democratic Committee, and also to listen so that I could take some information back to all of you. The meeting took place a week, I guess it was a week or so ago. And I can tell you what organizations were involved. Chamber of Commerce, the Kent Garden Club, Historical Society, the Lions Club, the Kent Town Republican Committee, and the Democratic Committee. And there were a few others where the heads of those couldn't come, but did express an interest to him, and hopefully there'll be some follow-up. Anyway, he wanted to reach out to the civic organizations to try to gauge their interest and give their perspective and feedback on potential future use. all the participants seemed enthusiastic and in concert with a desire to use the Swift House as a collaborative, but only if the condition was improved to use the space productively. In other words, it needs to be cleaned up more, made ADA compliant, and with some basic improvements that, like those that we've talked about, that we would need to try to run by an architect who's knowledgeable about ADA requirements. Because if the town is to make changes to the building to make it more user-friendly for organizations and different types of use and events, meetings, small meetings, lectures, whatever, then we need to make sure that the recommendations that we've talked about and that we put on paper as a sort of a sketch and an idea will fit with the ADA requirements. One of those would be the redoing of the stairway to the second floor to make it code compliant. Whether we could relocate the kitchen to the space that we had identified as more appropriate. And, the thoughts about how to relocate the cloakroom if it's going to be incorporated, and that the current space is going to be incorporated into a ADA compliant bathroom. Those things. I don't know. Yeah.
Can I just say something? Then I think it's, rather than waste all of our time going on and on and on, we need to recommend that an architect come up with a full plan for the downstairs to present to the Board of Selectmen, and let whatever firm we decide to hire and work with us to lay out the full downstairs, come up with the full plan rather than us running around trying to get concrete prices for underneath the building. Then he can come up with an electric plan, window plan, layout of, maybe he will recommend moving the bathroom somewhere else. That would be either if it was out in that other build area, out in that other room where you want to put the rat slab. So I think we need to recommend to get an architect in there first so we can get some real ideas, and then we can set things out for some prices, rather than waste our time worrying about if we're going to paint window sills first, and actually get an architect to do this.
Well, I don't think we need to get an architect to recommend painting windowsills, but I do agree with you. I mean, I think the key and the most important aspect of working with an architect is to make sure that, maybe they have new and better ideas, which
Right.
I think we'd certainly be willing to listen to and look at. But we do have some ideas that we've reviewed and approved. And I'd like to know if they're compliant with requirements for ADA use and certainly the building codes. So, but nobody's given us any money to do that. And I don't know if I've asked a couple of times, but I haven't heard back from the selectman's office about whether there might be any discretionary funds available to have a preliminary meeting and outline what we have to accomplish with an architect. I
think it's pretty simple what we need to accomplish. We need to accomplish a bathroom, a kitchen area,
Mhm.
make sure it's totally compliant, the downstairs, and even work on an upstairs plan to see exactly what it's going to really cost you to do the upstairs. Because if they're talking a capital plan and you're talking 5 years out, it's a waste of time to start trying to put prices together now, because we don't know what prices are going to be in 5 years.
Before a proposal comes before the Board of Selectmen, I mean, I think it would be really unfortunate, bordering on criminal, to leave this building sitting idle for 5 years or 6 years
Oh,
and do nothing. I
right.
mean,
Well, that's why
it's
I think we
crazy.
need
It
to
needs to
start.
be put back
you know,
into use.
So we need to start with an architect to have them draw us up some real plans for the downstairs. Because they may want to move that bathroom, because where that bathroom is, the sewer line runs right underneath the full length of the building. Going out where
Yeah.
that rat slab is, going right in the corner there. And it might make more sense to move the bathroom into that far back room.
Well, in order to do that, if it's ADA compliant, all of the doorways between the main room and the back room have to be widened. And
Right, which you may
according
want to
to-
do anyway. You may
But-
want to make it a bigger hallway and make the kitchen and blow the kitchen area out bigger. Because that bathroom is tight in that corner of that room. And if you opened it up, you could put a nice coat closet in there and make an area of the room. And that's why I think we really need to concentrate on an architect and have the town work with us to hire somebody to
I
look
mean,
the whole
I
thing
can't
over.
think of where else the bathroom would go, because if you put it in the back of the building, it would eat into that room that's a very usable size and space now. And it would be a lot more expensive to relocate it than to upgrade it where it is. I mean, these are the kinds of questions I'd like to ask an architect, but we don't have access to one. So the first thing we need to do is see if we can get some discretionary funds to meet with an architect who's well-versed in ADA compliance and code issues.
Exactly. That's my whole point. I think that's what we need to do first before we start going on and worrying about getting prices for exterior painting and rear room foam and all this other stuff on the agenda, because we really need someone to come in and say, they may come in and say the whole electric system is kind of sketchy in spots. We don't know.
Yeah, I met with John Gleason and reviewed the electrical requirements and potential requirements. And I do have a price from him, but of course we didn't do any probing and take apart walls and take a look at what's in
Right.
there. Marge, do you remember from Historical Society years and from when Miss Emily was alive and doing upgrades, if they did any upgrades to the electrical wiring in the building?
I have no idea.
Do you have any idea who would have done that if
No,
work was done?
no.
John Gleason looked at the service in the building, and it's divided in two as it is now. Because the upstairs was an apartment and was billed separately. And I think Joyce has actually said that she still continues to get 2 bills for Swift House, one for upstairs, one for downstairs. So he gave a price for combining them so that we would have more service, increasing to 200 amp service by combining the 2 100 amp services, since most of the requirements are in the basement and first floor. And also another price depending upon HVAC heating and cooling if the building goes to a heat pump. And whatever the cooking requirements are to increase the amperage to the building to 400 amps. Anyway, but that's something that we could also review with an architect. And look at those issues. So as far as this ad hoc group of to go back to the last item, the group of participants in this informal meeting, they were very enthusiastic. The way things were left was that they would go back to their constituencies, their membership, and see if they could get endorsement for participation in a collaborative way. And if that were to be the case, then those who wanted to continue working on it would come together and get their ideas coalesced and try to put together a proposal to present to us and to the Board of Selectmen. And they'd like very much to try to do that, seemed promising, to try to do that and get it off the ground so that if there are any budget implications, they can be considered during the budget season.
Zan, when do you anticipate that to happen?
Well, you tell me, moving backwards, when do you have to have all budget proposals?
Well, capital will be decided in November and December.
And by December what? I mean, when?
I don't have an exact date. We haven't put the schedule, but generally it's wrapped up and it goes to the Board of Selectmen, because in the past we've tried to have it ready for the January town meeting.
Yep.
So it will go to the Board of Finance in January.
Okay, so it has to be, you have to, the
So
select.
generally, we send out notice to departments in November asking for the requests, and generally we have started implementing no late submissions of requests, because once we have, everybody's requests, we give them this, we weight them and put them in the plan. So there probably would be some kind of deadline in November for submission. And then the selectmen will discuss it, approve it, and bring it to the Board of Finance potentially in January.
Well, they'll discuss it in December. I mean,
Yeah.
what's the outside date that we could present something to the selectmen?
And for a capital request,
Yeah,
I don't have the exact dates yet. Barbara has kind of taken over doing the capital budget. Not sure, but I know in the past, our goals have been November to get those requests out so that during December and early January, the selectmen work on it to bring to the Board of Finance, to bring to the town meeting. So I would target mid-November. So a month from now, 30 days.
okay, so then it's even more critical that we identify some, the ability to work with an architect on some of the preliminary plans and ideas and requirements. Are there any discretionary funds to do that? Joyce?
She can't answer that.
I mean,
Sorry, my mouse didn't work. No, because best guess in talking to people, an architect would be $3,000 to $5,000. I've already expended the Swift House budget, and I'm unaware of any other funds at this point.
well, I remember when I started working on this, 3 years ago, that the then selectmen came up with some discretionary funds to allow us to get some wheels in motion, and because we were still in the middle of a budget year.
Right. Keeping in mind, in December, we're going to be going to a town meeting asking for additional budget appropriations for, an SRO and a EMS staffing. So discretionary funds are very limited.
And that will be a town meeting for the coming budget year,
For the current budget
No,
year,
for the current.
or current.
correct.
When is that meeting scheduled?
December 15th, 16th, December 16th. Well, that'd be the referendum. I apologize. The
Right.
actual meeting would be the 2nd, December 2nd.
December 2nd is a town meeting. And December 16 would be the referendum voting on whatever is presented for the
Correct.
SRO and the EMS.
That's the plan.
Okay.
And is that set in stone, Joyce, what those two items?
Those two
Consent.
agenda items, yes.
Yeah, okay, nothing can be added to
but
that.
the-
Well, they have not approved the agenda yet, so
Okay, so if we got somehow a group together to go in before a meeting for the Board of Selectmen, maybe they could add it if we got an architect and a fee.
right. But keeping in mind, you wouldn't go to a town meeting unless it was over a $20,000 expenditure.
Yep, no, I understand, yep.
So
Okay. And
Well,
then
Zan, that should be your homework right there,
to find an
or
architect.
our homework, to get an architect, get a fee set, and some sort of an idea of spending up to $20,000 to get on that agenda. Otherwise, you're gonna be waiting a whole nother year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing that I'm very concerned about with this timetable that Joyce just sent us today is, somehow if this building that the town owns, it needs to be put into productive use before 6 years is up.
So I agree 100%.
Yeah, because otherwise.
And that's why I said we need to get going on this, on the referendum somehow, get on there and get the handicap ramp, the ADH bathroom, and an architect plan approved.
Okay,
That would be my recommendation, and get the other group to come in with us for support, because if they all show up at a referendum, they would probably all vote, and the more people that vote on items, the better chance you have of getting something passed. But it is short notice.
it is short notice. Is Joyce,
yes,
has any effort been put into getting any potential costs for the ADA compliant entrance and bathroom? I mean, we don't even know what the plans are.
No.
Haven't seen a plan or specifications or anything that could go to a contractor to give a decent price on. I went over the bathroom issue with a contractor some months ago because I knew that was an important thing that needed to be addressed, and got a quote from him for the labor, but not for materials, because at that point, cost of materials was so in flux that he didn't want to put anything on paper that was, a year out. At this point, I might be able to get him to come back and do that. But, if we, what we also would need to specify the fixtures and fittings, so that it's an accurate quote. Has the selectman's office talked to anybody about that work? And if so, who and what kind of feedback have you gotten?
okay, so I did put together, based on the ADA checklist, and you all did receive it, and no, it's not on the agenda, but since you're asking the question, I did put together some information, and I think Ed is on the right track, because you can't just do one component of putting a bathroom in and open the building. It's almost a domino effect. Once you do the bathroom, you have to open the doorways. Well, to get the doorways opened, you need to fix the floors. In
Yeah.
order to fix the floors, you have to do all of the switches.
But Joyce,
But
that-
wait, can I finish?
sure,
So I think it's great that you want to get a price for this or get a price for that, as Ed had said. But number one, you don't know what your timetable is for the pricing. inflation is up 8-10% every year. So the prices that you're getting today are not going to be valid if we can't do this project right away. So I think that unfortunately, in the contractors that I've spoken to, I'm not wasting their time making them pen and paper something that I can't commit that I'm even going to do in the next 5 years. It's unfair to them. And I understand that we need prices, and I understand that that's the avenue you're going, but I really don't think that locking somebody down with a piece of paper and pencil is really gonna get us anywhere.
Okay, it's my understanding from conversations with John Worthington.
That's
and
correct.
Other projects
Mhm.
that, and also from talking to the ADA people in Washington and the Department of Justice,
Okay.
you do not have to do everything all at once.
But
That
if you
have an ADA compliant entrance and bathroom, and every other aspects of ADA compliance are on the planning board, on the plans over time.
right, that is true. I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah,
But you're using this space as a venue event. If somebody has an ADA issue and you get them in the building and the only thing that they can do is stay in that one spot and go to a restroom, how are we servicing that person? We're not. We're confining them to one space.
well,
So
but
I think,
it's the main space and the principal meeting room.
okay, but if you're talking about moving the kitchen and using that back
Yeah, I'm
room,
not
they
talking
need to be able
about-
to access that.
I'm not talking.
That's
about-
what you just spent the first 20 minutes of this meeting talking
No, no, no.
about.
I'm not talking about year one immediate. I'm talking about the first thing that needs to be done according to the ADA coordinator, who's better versed in all these things than any of us.
Correct.
If we provide an ADA entrance and bathroom,
Mhm.
then the building can be reopened and used. And then if any other changes are made,
Okay.
they would have to be ADA compliant.
Okay.
But if you can get into the main room for where all of the main events take place, then,
Mhm.
and maybe it would also mean providing an entrance to the other front room that you could get through and easily with a wheelchair, which wouldn't be hard. It's just putting a doorway through the closet that goes into the chamber, the office that the chambers rented in the past.
If I can just say something, I agree with both of you, but I would like to see the plan for the downstairs to be done by the architect with a plan completed.
I would
The
too.
kitchen area, the bathroom,
Great.
whatever
Right.
upgrade, so we know what's gonna need to be done, then we can either tackle the couple, but if you go in with a plan at a referendum meeting with just one drawing saying, okay, the bathroom's gonna be here, but we're not, no, but
I
just listen to
completely
me for a
agree
minute.
with you,
But
Ed.
you're right, okay, so if you're gonna have a meeting room and a bathroom, you really should have some sort of a kitchen area.
Mhm.
And that kitchen area, the way it looks right now, to me, is a disaster. So if we're gonna do it, I would rather do it right, which is gonna hurt us. Even if we have to go to a referendum and get more money, I don't care about that. And I think this other group, because I've discussed this with Chris Garrity for a long time also,
Uh-huh.
I would like to see it get done.
Yeah. Because then it's useful.
Unfortunately, people are gonna lose interest in 4 years. And it's gonna be right back to where you are again in 5 years, having a meeting room with a bathroom and a ramp and nothing else.
Yeah. I agree with you. The whole plan has to be done and priced out as if it were going to happen next year.
And try to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely the downstairs. I would like to see that rather than piecemealed together.
Mhm. Okay.
And I think you would get the support from the townspeople to do this.
So Ed, when you're talking about doing the downstairs, are you also talking about doing the exterior work that needs to be done?
Well, the exterior, I would love to see the exterior work done.
I'm just
Yeah, I
asking if
mean,
you're including that.
Oh, I would love to, that's why, but I would like to
Right.
get architect's ideas of what definitely needs to be done right
Yeah,
now
I
to
mean,
make the building look presentable and to be usable.
and to protect it.
Well, yeah, oh, well,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
I
Yep.
mean, I think, Joyce, in answer to that question, I think there are exterior things that can be prioritized. I mean, there's one exterior wall. I mean, I just did a lot of work at my house and I picked the things that really needed to be done and moved around the exterior to protect things that were going to get worse if they weren't done now. But I prioritized it and postponed things that didn't really need to be done this year. And that can happen a year from now. I think we can do that with the exterior of Swift House too. There's one facade that's where the paint is peeling and the clapboards are exposed. And, you know, it would probably behoove us to do that before the rest that's in shadow and not getting the same kind of exposure, wind, sun, etc. So I would ask a painter to prioritize, and you know, that doesn't all have to be done the same year. And before I forget, Joyce,
Yes.
when I don't know who did the sewer system hookup, which I'm really glad is off the agenda and taken care of.
Yes.
But normally when a contractor does that kind of work, they're required to reseed and take care of the you know, the area that they've disrupted. And it looks pretty awful. You know, it's just kind of rocky soil with no grass on it where there was a nice lawn.
I believe we had a pretty drought there for a while, and it probably didn't take off to the best of it. So we will readdress it in the spring.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they did
They
see
did see it.
And
They did?
they tried to water it also. The town did. I was there a few times
Yeah.
when they were trying to do it.
But
But also I told them not to get too fancy there because we weren't sure what we were doing with the driveway anyway. Remember, we were
Yeah.
talking about running the ramp around behind the house?
Yeah. It's the only thing that seems to have survived were a couple outcroppings of crabgrass. But I
Yep.
know it was a really, really tough summer. So yeah, so just wanted to mention that while I was thinking about it. Does anybody have, I mean, I will call John Worthington about recommended architects who are familiar with ADA. And I don't know, West Wyrick has been quite helpful and I mean, he came and met with me a long time ago at the beginning of this exercise. And he also provided me, fortunately, with another set of floor plans because the other ones somehow disappeared in the process. So we have those to work off. And it may be that he could, I don't know. One of the first things that I asked him when I met with him, you know, like 2 years ago, was about code issues and ADA compliance in terms of some of the ideas that we had discussed. And he didn't really give me a lot of feedback on that. It's, you know, you need somebody who thinks creatively and comes up with good solutions, but they also need to know the code backwards and forwards if that's what we're really aiming to accomplish. So if anybody has suggestions of people to try to meet with, that would be good. And I will also call Jean about funding for that. Discretionary funds. Okay, moving right along. What else is on the agenda here? Is there anything else anybody wants to add to this conversation about trying to have, I mean, this is an important part of our report to the selectmen because, you know, over and over again, there are comments on the survey about, well, you know, I'd like to know more about what these things cost. And it's all relative, and I know that there's inflation, and I know that costs, it depends entirely on when the work is done. But, you know, my hope is sooner rather than later, because I'd like to see the building back in use. And I think, you know, we probably all feel that way. Are we mutually, I mean, do we all agree that that's our objective?
Yeah,
Okay. So the preliminary report, oh, no, the status of historic design. That was something I wanted to ask you, I mean, designation, sorry. I wanted to ask you about that, Marge. And if that's something that, if there's anybody, I don't know if there's anybody on staff at the Historical Society, or if there's anybody in Town Hall who might be able to take that on. But my understanding is that if the building has historical designation, that there may be, as there was with Seven Hearths, some leniency on adhering to strict rules for code, or, you know, building code, or ADA use. If the upstairs is not rented out as an apartment, there are much different requirements than if it's used for storage space for members of this potential collaborative of civic organizations. Storage space doesn't have the same requirement as people sleeping in a second floor dwelling. But if the building had ADA, had historic designation.
you're talking about getting it on the State Register of Historic Places?
Well, you know, you're the advisor on this kind of stuff. It would be the state register.
That's the one that I'm trying to work on, and I took my computer with me on vacation to work on it. And when I got up there, I found I didn't have the information on the computer that I needed. I have not been able to do anything, and I've got my ducks half in a row. I've taken the extra pictures that Marina has been asking for. I just haven't gotten to it. And I can easily tell you that there's no other staff at the Historical Society that can do it. We're overworked as is. I'll continue to work on it, but I can't tell you what the status is.
Okay, because if I've been told that if we can get that status, and I don't know if there's another status, if that's the one we should be going for.
So who told you that? I'm
Well,
just curious.
John Worthington said if the building has historic status, there may be some leniency about what you have to do for ADA compliance things.
Well, I would love to know what that historic status that he's thinking about is, because if I'm going down the wrong path, I don't want to continue that.
I will ask him. I don't know if he had a particular one in mind, or if he even knows the difference between what other ones would there be besides the state register? of
Probably
Historic
National Register, and I think there is a difference
Okay.
in terms of the protection. My sense is, and this is just my fuzzy memory trying to retrieve stuff, that national designation might have more clout than state, but I don't think this house qualifies for national designation.
Okay, so that might be a waste of effort.
Precisely.
What would it be about the building that wouldn't comply?
I just don't think it's really significant enough.
Okay.
And do we want to take shortcuts anyway?
Well,
You
I
know,
was only thinking about things like door hardware, you know.
I don't think the state designation is not going to address anything like that. I think it's primarily exterior.
No, but if the building has state registration as a historic place, then maybe as long as you have a valid entrance exit with ADA compliant hardware, maybe you don't have to change the hardware on all the doors and make it look like, an institution.
Yeah, I see what
As
you're saying.
opposed to an historic building.
Well, if you could find out what John was thinking about, let me know. I'll dig back into it.
Okay. All right. I think I've got a lot of homework to do here. Okay. Joyce, has any effort been put in? I think I asked this before and I don't remember if you answered it or if we got sidetracked.
Okay.
Has any effort been put into trying to determine the cost of the specifications and or the cost for the ADA compliant entrance and restroom?
Okay, so the way that I tackled that, that when I did this spreadsheet, excuse me, I prioritized it based upon the ADA checklist that John and Jean had gone through and done. And so there's a column that says priorities. And so according to that plan, the priority is the approach and the entrance. And yes, in speaking to a contractor, I was given an estimate of approximately $70,000, but that all depends on, again, when we do it and the cost, because we'll have to create a driveway, we'll have to create the ramp, the entryway.
You
And
know,
then
just
No.
as an aside, when I talk to the people in Washington in the Department of Justice, I guess it is where this office is, they asked if the building had a parking lot, and I said, no, it didn't.
Correct.
They asked if it was reachable by sidewalk within the town, which it is and will be even better once the sidewalks are finished. And that if you don't have a parking lot, you don't have to make a parking lot, because we're never going to have a parking lot, unless you take all the grass from around the building and put stripes on it. So that seemed a difference of opinion.
We've discussed this. We've gone,
And if you took the approach that they suggested, then you could enter through the front entrance as long as once you get in, you have enough space to turn right or left. The drawings that Wes Wyrick's office did some years ago, they have a ramp that goes to the front entrance. And that was, I think, meant for ADA entrance. And then they wouldn't have to go around the back of the building. And you wouldn't have to do a lot of work in the back. It would mean that somebody.
but if you recall, when we were in the building with Stan and Joe, they clearly stated that we need a driveway with an entrance. You gave that same exact description of speaking to people in Washington, and they told you, or they told the group, if I'm mistaken, please let me know. But that's how we came to the conversation that we potentially would move it to the back of the building. They felt that was the most appropriate location.
But neither one of them is at ADA compliance.
Okay, they are familiar with the ADA, and I think we're rehashing the same old stuff. So if you want to take Ed's suggestion and have an architect decide it, otherwise, I provided the information that I did based upon the checklist, but I don't know how else to answer your questions
Okay.
anymore.
So the figure that you got of 70,000, where did that come from and what were the specifications to do it?
It was a rough discussion based upon putting in a driveway, a ramp, and the entryway
A driveway and where we've.
along the side into the back entrance, correct?
Okay, driveway, ramp, but not, one of the suggestions I think that Ed had earlier was instead of a long ramp, you could redo the
But it was the grade, not, I
It
don't mean
was
an
the grade.
actual like
Right.
wooden ramp, the grade
Right.
of that entrance.
But you still need a ramp going into the door.
Yeah,
Right.
going into the door, you need a ramp.
Correct. Yep.
But you could adjust the grade so that you didn't need as much of a ramp and it wasn't as much
Correct.
of an eyesore.
Correct.
Ramp and grade,
Mhm.
and then the entrance.
Correct.
Okay, and that would be coming in from the patio or into the back room? Well, the back room.
Well, it comes into like right in front of what's currently the coat closet or the table closet right there. That's where
Right.
that door comes in into the big room.
Okay, because, but it could also potentially, if the hallway is wide enough, it could come into the back room and have a ramp that goes to that door.
Okay, but again, if we start utilizing that back space, you're increasing the size of the rental space, which then increases potentially the number of restrooms. Again, Joe and Stan had that conversation with us. So we need to decide what we're going to utilize as far as rental space. Again, back to Ed's point, and how it's going to be designed so that then we can decide, do we need one restroom? Do we need two restrooms?
Well, we're not talking about rental space. We're talking about an entrance here. And we're also talking.
I understand. But you're not gonna have them enter into a space that's not usable. So
Well-
now you've made that usable space, which increases your square footage, which increases the number of people you can have in the building, which changes the number of restrooms, potentially.
So where did the figure on this thing that you presented to us this afternoon, where
Mhm.
did that figure of 50 people come from?
That's what can be in the building right now, according to Joe and Stan.
Correct. And they did say that at our meeting.
So can I be clear on this? Earlier in the meeting, I pointed this document out and
I know.
it was said that this is a special meeting and we couldn't talk about it, but here we are talking about it. So
Yeah.
are we allowed to talk about this right now?
Well, we
Wait.
kind of can because we're not making any decisions on it.
Okay, so can I say one thing about the rat slab going back? So on this document, as I was going to say earlier in the meeting, it says interior, update kitchen, rat slab and insulate floor and back room, repair interior walls and paint and furniture. All of that $60,000. Was there a
Where
was there
did
a
you-
number just for? Can I finish? What
Yeah.
can I finish?
I
was
just
there
was
just a-
asking where you found that because I want to approach it.
It's on number
Okay.
5.
Number
Okay.
5 of the
Second to
document
last
that Joyce
line.
sent.
So can I ask, do we know what the rat slab and insulate material floor in the back room? Do we know what part of $60,000 that was? Any idea?
It's a smaller portion. I would say about 10,000 of it. I walked around with somebody and based on current contractors' prices, I did not get a kitchen specialist and a bathroom specialist. And, I spoke to a contractor, we walked around, we talked about it. John Worthington has reviewed this document. As I indicated, the only thing he told me was to increase the restroom from 20,000 to 40,000 because he felt that was a more appropriate figure for that. Other than that, he himself, as far as I know, didn't have any other issues with the pricing. Again, based on if we were going to do it today.
Okay. Okay.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
and
all, that's all I
yeah.
want to know. Yep. Thanks.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, and in terms of what, the rat slab and the insulation, Glenn, I think we talked about this before, but what I had in mind was, where there's an earth floor under that back room so that you get all the moisture
Mhm.
penetration and the cold, and also animals that burrow under the back doors and take their winter there, which is not exactly great for the building. To put down concrete, maybe with insulation under it, so that it you could put rigid foam insulation under it, and just do the floor. And then underneath the floor joists, under the floor directly above the rat slab, on the bottom of the floor of that room, there would be sprayed foam insulation that would insulate the room above from the cold below.
So this is underneath the floorboards.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, you can see all that space by opening those doors and without ever going into the building. Because it's a question of concrete and foam insulation above it, underneath the floor joists.
Was that how part of the $60,000 was determined? Did people go in there or just go on the outside?
We walked around the outside of the building. It was a rough estimate. Again, these numbers.
Yeah, I think, Joyce, if we're gonna make a presentation to the town, to the select board, we really need more definitive information, because
That's fine.
than rough estimates, as if the work were going to be done next year. And then, you know, if it's determined that certain parts of this are postponed to a later date, then, and put on a capital budget, you know, that would have to be escalated, but for inflation. But we can't ask to have the work done altogether, what needs to be done to put this building back in usable condition and make it user-friendly and attractive and, you know, available to the groups and organizations and potential renters who might want to use it. We need to have real figures. People are going to keep asking us that. You know, we can't just have, and one of the things that you sent us, I think, was, where is it? Trying to find, oh, yeah. The figure that you gave of 185,000 ballpark for repairing the siding and trim, replacing windows, handicap ramp, deck, prime and paint building, repair all decks and porches. I mean, as a person who's had years of design and construction management, I don't even know what that includes. I mean, I don't know. I mean, prime and paint the building, that's pretty self-explanatory. But handicap ramp deck, what is the deck? What is the ramp? Is that include the changing the grade and bringing it to,
Again, yes.
yeah, what entrance?
Again, yes.
Replacement windows. How many windows need to be?
All of them.
All of the windows in the entire building?
Yes. If you're going to bring, you started the meeting by saying people want to upgrade this building. They want to be able to use it. I personally am not renting that building without the upgrades of a new kitchen, new flooring, new windows. I mean, if you want it to be what it needs to be and you want to bring it to what it needs to be, then that's my perspective. If I'm not thinking the same way you're thinking, then
Well,
I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, there are some things, there are some windows that really need to be replaced that are in bad condition. But I'd rather see the windows replaced with something that's architecturally appropriate.
Absolutely. I wasn't saying that we were going to put in windows without natural divider. I mean, I'm not talking about just slapping in some cheap, you know, $150 Home Depot replacement window.
Yeah, but if the second floor is being used initially as storage, then unless there are windows that are really in very bad repair, maybe they can be done later. You know, I mean, it's helpful to know what all is included in this.
Then you need, my suggestion then is to go back to Ed's suggestion. You meet with an architect, you tell them what you want, then you bring it back to the subcommittee and we'll know exactly what we're getting prices on and what exact work is being done. And I think we're all kind of approaching this from a different perspective.
Right, and if any of it can be prioritized and what should be in phase one.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, we need access to an architect.
So
correct.
as long as we're looking at this document, which I believe we can now, you know, it's a little bit north of 400,000. So we have some numbers here. Some may go up, some may go down. It
Yeah.
includes an architect. I don't know if any of these can be rearranged. Like, is this in descending order of priority?
It was
may
in
be.
order of the ADA checklist, so
Order of the ADA
ADA
checklist.
deemed, correct.
So we have a document
Mhm,
with a broad outline of what this will cost. This is not going to be cheap.
mhm.
This is in order of the ADA checklist.
Right.
You know, this could change. I mean, you know, we could get an architect who could say it could be a little bit less, a little bit more. Who
Well,
knows?
it isn't the architect, it's the contractors, and this is ballpark from one contractor. Is that not correct? Joyce?
Primarily.
Yeah.
Okay.
So things like, for example, you know, if you go to a GC, they're gonna build everything, they're gonna put everything under their umbrella, and they're gonna charge you 15-20% markup on subcontractors. If you had a building painted by a painter, they would, you wouldn't have to pay the GC markup.
That
So,
has nothing to do with what we're discussing right now,
Yeah,
actually.
well, it does in terms of,
I mean, we just got prices to redo the ambulance bar,
uh-huh,
to put 2 bays in downstairs, sleeping quarters upstairs, and it came in at $385,000. So I'm going back to what I feel. We've got at a ballpark price, $408,500. Good start. I'd rather be high rather than low. Start. We can always go up to the street to talk to the gentleman that's doing the Victorian Square house over. He's a contractor. His father, I believe, is an architect, but I'm not sure. But we need an architect to draw us up a plan. It's finished downstairs with the ramps, the doors, whatever we need. And then if we wanted to add their approximate cost to the driveway and the ramp and the door, which we know we're going to have regardless. You're gonna have to have a driveway that's
Right.
finished. And present that at some point at a referendum to get the vote, to get the architect plan started. We can always go back again. But I would rather see this place downstairs rather than piecemeal, because I've seen too many projects get started and
And
ended before they
languish.
get finished.
yeah. And then nobody wants to use the building because it's
Exactly.
still in poor
Exactly.
condition and not usable. Yeah.
And if the people say, oh, no, we're not gonna spend $408,000 and we're not gonna use an architect, at least we'll have our answer.
So let's talk about architects. Who is an architect locally that might be able to handle this and would
I think we'll have to do the homework on it, because I don't know off the top of my head, but I'd love to find out who the gentleman is that's doing the Victoria Square and the,
I can find that out.
I've got the Sun contractor's number somewhere in my phone, because I've spoken to him a couple times. But look how fast they're doing the inn.
Uh-huh.
and I think they're sensitive to the
Oh,
old
very
buildings.
much so.
Yeah,
Very
because
much so.
they got in touch with us to see if we could help them with the history of the building. So I think that's a good idea.
Okay. All right. Got to
Find
start.
out who their architect is, and maybe they could even recommend another one if they're all busy. But this is where we need to start, with an architect, because I've seen too many projects in Kent start and fail before they get done by trying to piecemeal too many different things.
Okay, so, you know, the list of estimated costs and assignments then is sort of in abeyance until we can try to get,
Right, because I think that list is just, we're nitpicking at it. And as Ed said, if we can tackle it from the point of view of an architect's suggestions, I think it'd be a lot better. I feel like we're just constantly going around in circles.
okay. I can sign on to that. All right, so then forget about item number 4 on the agenda. And I'd like to have whatever information is available from the selectman's office about the ideas and recommendations for the ADA entrance and restroom as a starting point to discuss with an architect. That some of it is landscaping. And then, okay, future meeting. All right, so bypassing item number 4 pretty much entirely. When can we meet next? Here's my schedule. I was really hoping that we'd have enough information to complete our report and present it to the selectmen in November. And if we're going to get on any kind of budget consideration for getting into this meeting, considering some preliminary costs and trying to determine a time frame, we're going to have to do that pronto. I'm leaving as of December 1st, but I'm in California and available by Zoom or telephone or whatever for, 10 days, almost 2 weeks. And then I'm in New Zealand for a month. So, it's not another planet, but it certainly is as far away as you can get in terms of time zones. So I'm hoping that we can get something together to present to the selectmen by early December that can be considered.
Hello, Zan.
Yeah,
This is Alice Hicks.
yeah,
And listening to your challenges with time, I just wanted to interject something about the historical designation
mhm,
that may be helpful in cutting down the time on that, if you're going to put that in your packet.
okay,
When I worked with the office, they made it very clear for the state designation, the application must come from the owner.
okay.
Not a representative, not the historical society, not a volunteer like me, the owner.
Okay,
And they suggested talking to the building inspector. Just so you know, I just don't
So-
want you, I'm just telling you, I don't want to discuss it. I'm telling you what the facts are that they told me.
so Alice, talking to the building inspector in terms of, the building inspector would be the one who would,
She just said, for example, a building inspector is an employee of the town.
Mhm.
Well, all right,
That's, I didn't mean to interrupt and continue
No.
the conversation. I'm trying to help you cut through some of the red tape that they just need. The state designation is not as onerous
Uh-huh.
as you think. It's
No,
just
it's
they
not.
need data.
Yeah.
They just need data. They need the pictures that you're working on. The photographs that you referred to before.
Right, yeah, I've got
Marge?
all of those and I've got some text that would be put together in it, and Alice, I've
won't
heard
take-
from Marina
yeah.
and she just said,
Yeah.
get that to her. And then,
Right,
yes, she said,
exactly.
But
she
then it
said the
has
building
to,
inspector as an employee of the town could sign the application.
Exactly.
The building inspector is not an employee of the town. He's a contracted employee. He's a contracted vendor.
Well, all right,
So
but
it would have-
whoever, if we consult with the building inspector, we prepare the application, then the town selectman can sign it.
Correct.
yeah, so a selectman or even Joyce could sign it. She's an.
Yes. Oh,
employee.
yes.
No.
Joyce.
Yeah.
I cannot sign it.
I didn't mean to.
No, that's very
I was
helpful
trying to help
information,
you.
Alice.
You
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
Alice.
No,
You are,
Sorry.
that's good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
it's
Alice.
very helpful.
You're welcome. Bye.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Okay, so, Marge, do you want to follow that through in terms
Yeah,
of getting
that's
those photos
that's
and
my to-do
data?
list.
Okay, And
I'm
then,
working on it.
yeah, and then maybe, just take it directly to
Yes, I
or
will.
whatever. Okay, perfect.
I'm sorry to be snippy, but just,
Yeah,
ugh.
no.
I'm gonna be gone or not, I'm not gonna be gone. I'm gonna be unavailable from the 13th to the 19th of November to get back to that question.
Okay. Uh, All right, if you could try to get that information. You need pictures taken or,
I've taken the pictures, I've got the text started. I just forgot I put the wrong information. I don't remember if I took the wrong computer or took the wrong information. I got up to the Adirondacks, planning to work on it. I didn't have the information. I'm just catching up now, and I'll get to it as soon as I can.
okay, good. So that'll be, then we don't have to talk about that at the next meeting.
No.
We just have to figure out when are we having our next meeting. I'd like to, I'd like to be able to report back on the sort of informal outreach that Chris has done when he knows, which organizations are interested and can try to figure out with them, how they'd like to organize themselves. So that could be a part of our discussion with the selectmen. Joyce, when is the next regular selectmen's meeting?
Tomorrow,
Tomorrow, yeah.
Oh, I know tomorrow. I mean, after tomorrow,
the 3rd, November 3rd.
November.
3rd and the 17th.
And the 17th?
Correct.
Okay, all right. So I think we should try to, well, the biggest challenge, and if anybody has any input or suggestions, please reach out. I'll go to the Victorian people. I'll see what's going on there. And, maybe Wes Wyrick could be helpful or suggest somebody if he's not interested in doing it, or if he doesn't think it's up his alley. Last time, the one hesitation I have is that last time he did work for the town, I think it was a pretty high price tag that the town paid for comprehensive work. But
Yep.
it might not be as much because he has all the dimensions, all the information in his computer and his files, and he might be willing to share that with another architect, but it's a conversation I can try to have with him and see what we can do.
And will you do that ASAP?
I certainly will, yes.
And then get us informed on what he says, and then so we can try to,
I can't get anybody informed outside of a damn meeting because that's not the rules.
yeah, no, I understand that, but I don't want to start calling other architects if Wes says, yes, he's willing to do it.
I would see, is it allowed, Joyce, for people to provide information between meetings? Just for things that are works in progress? Like if people have suggestions of somebody to call?
Not really. I mean, you can't conduct business via email if that's what you're asking. You cannot.
Not email, that's correct.
Or phone call or anything outside of a meeting.
So
Smoke signals?
you can't even say, here's a name and phone number. See if they're interested. Nobody is making any decisions. It's just moving the ball ahead. Is there a way for that to happen?
Given the circumstances, if that's what you're doing, that's fine. But if you,
That's fine.
if you move forward and start discussing more, then you're conducting business. If you're just providing information such as a name and a number, if FOI tells you that's wrong, then so be it. But
Okay.
I think that there's some leniency
I
there.
would appreciate any outreach. Oh, Marge, who is the architect who offered his services to the Historical Society, the one who lives in Sharon. We went to his house one time.
Scott Samuelson?
Yes. Is he still around?
I have no idea.
Uh, And does he have an office around?
I don't know anything about him, Zan. I just don't remember.
Okay, maybe I'll try to ask Michael Ward, because I think it was Bruce who brought him into
Yeah,
when Bruce was heading up the building committee. Okay. I'll try him, because I know he's sympathetic to traditional architecture. Okay, any other suggestions? Just send me a name, contact information if you have it, and architect, and I'll follow up. But don't tell me more than that, because it might break the rules. Okay, next meeting. Can we? I mean, we can't just wait month after month, and especially under the circumstances. When can we have a meeting in November? You see, Marge, you said you're not available the 13th to the 19th. Right. Before that. We can schedule a meeting, and it can be very brief if there's nothing to report or accomplish, but I'd like to have something on the board, because otherwise it won't happen.
If we stick with Wednesday at 7 o'clock, I can do the 2nd, but I cannot do the 9th or the 16th.
Okay, let's say the 2nd then.
But 2nd works for me if it works for everybody else.
let me go
Okay.
look.
And that would be before both Board of Selectmen meetings, so
And the next selectmen's meeting
it's the
is
3rd.
3rd.
I can do the 2nd.
Okay. Okay, and the 17th.
I can do it as long as it's a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, well, it'll be Zoom. You know, I don't think we need to be anywhere for any, and so that would be 7 PM, Wednesday, the 2nd.
7 works. Yeah, that's good for me.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we should just keep the discussion down to architects that we found
Uh-huh.
and what we would like to see if we could get on the agenda for the referendum, see if we can get something on it.
Okay, so if Glenn isn't available the 9th or the 16th, shall we pencil in something for the 23rd?
Night before Thanksgiving?
No,
No, not a good idea.
Nope.
Is there any other day, like earlier in that week, the 21st or something, that would work for you, Glenn, and others?
why don't we talk about it on the 2nd?
Yep.
Okay, but if we don't have something sort of penciled in, then by the time it's the 2nd, maybe, you know, it's harder to make that happen if other people have plans.
Well, actually, it's easier for me the closer we get to a date than it is farther away.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for your participation and your thoughtful response to all this information. And we'll just try to move onward and upward.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So shall we call for adjournment at what is it? 8:20?
8:23.
8:23.
So
Okay.
moved.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Good seeing
Okay.
you.
Bye-bye.